Next topic I want to discuss is Jim Cornette, the Jim Cornette controversy that also recently occurred just before the holiday. So for those that don't know, Jim Cornette, he's a figure who's been in, he started off in the independent wrestling scene. He's been there, I guess he says since the 70s. He's from Tennessee. And I discovered him only maybe in the past year, from a mutual friend of mine, Matt, who you've heard on other episodes of the podcast. He introduced me to Jim Cornette because he still keeps up with the wrestling scene. As kids, I used to keep up with the wrestling as well. The WWF, or World Wrestling Federation, used to be known as the WWE, or World Wrestling Entertainment. And then there was also like NWA. There was I think it was Nitro part of them. There was some other ones, some other wrestling. That was the thing. That was the thing that we were into. And then at some point, my parents, they told us to stop, or I guess just told me. Really, I was the only one of my siblings. But they didn't want me watching it, and I wasn't even sure. And I should have, like in hindsight. Not even in hindsight, it's like later down the road, I'm surprised I didn't really ask right or dig down, because it's like by the time they told us that, we were no longer like practicing the wrestling moves in our backyard. We weren't doing that shit because it's like the first couple of times, you bump your head or get, kicked in the stomach or something, it's like, yeah, I'm not really for that. I'm not really about that life, But anyway, But Jim Cornette, he's a figure who is still participates in the wrestling industry. He's bounced back and forth between different parts of the independent as well as the, corporate sorry. And so Jim Cornette has bounced back and forth between the independent as well as the mainstream or corporate wrestling environments, right, spaces. And throughout it all, he's had this, he's developed his own, fan base that's centered, mostly around him. He has his own couple podcasts. And so I like listening to his podcast, even though I don't have, a context for like the people that are always being talked about or the events. It's the way that his charisma, his storytelling ability, his fluidity, and, just his clarity about everything, and being able to wrap it up and make it, make you feel engaged, with it. So I enjoy, and he does these long 90-minute, 2-hour, you know what I'm saying, like diatribes and shit. It's just, I just love every minute of it. But recently he had a controversy where he was doing commentary at a live wrestling event, right? And so he's making commentary during the match, and he makes a comment, I'm going to paraphrase here, about one of the wrestlers in the ring. He says, Song So is the only wrestler I know that could, run through Africa with a bucket of fried chicken on his back and not get, and nobody mess with him, right?
This as seriously as he might should. Trevor Murdoch, he's mad, bad, and dangerous to know. He's the only man I've ever known that can strap a bucket of fried chicken on his back and ride a motor scooter across Ethiopia. Trevor Murdoch can take care of himself. And so,
of course, you already know what what happened next. And, and in that immediate moment, I was like, look, it's obviously it's a tasteless joke. And yeah, I'm a black guy, and I've heard plenty of tasteless jokes, and I get to, the whole fried chicken thing, analogy. But, I mean, I don't know. Like honestly, I'm just somebody whom I try to judge each situation in its own context. And it's like, yeah, what he said, very insensitive. You could say that the joke is racist. I'm not going to go so far as to say that the man, Jim Cornette, is racist. We've all said insensitive things, bigoted things, and, can be considered problematic, depending on the context, depending on who we're put next to. So, so on that fact alone, I wasn't tripping too hard. And And then, so I, when it happened, of course I see, saying all throughout my timeline and whatnot, but I ignored it because sometimes I just like to see the dust settle and just, see if there's like any extra information or a longer, cut of audio or video that gives, greater context. I try to avoid just that immediate, let's just overreact, not to put it down, but like sometimes you need to make a bold reaction in the moment, but I try to make that the exception as opposed to the rule, So then when I decided to check it out, it was accompanied the clip of Jim Cornette making that statement, right? So you hear him, he makes the, comment, whatever, and they just continue on the match, right? And then there's a second, an audio clip, and it has Jim Cornette again himself recording or recalling an incident with a black wrestler he had backstage at, some event or whatever.
Right. Fucking ambulances, people screaming, one guy got hit, nobody got hurt. We used to have better shit than that happen twice or three times a night in a car that hits out. Big fuck, shit like that happens at wrestling shows all the time.
And he says that, him and this dude, this black wrestler, they're exchanging words or whatever, and that at some point Jim Cornette tells him, he insults him by calling him a nigger, right? And this is Jim himself recalling this story of him, admitting to this, right? Acknowledging that is, that like the situation could have got a lot worse than it did, and that, and then he acknowledges that he kind of gives in his mind in that moment. He was like, hey, if I can talk shit, about these white guys, then I should be able to talk about these black guys, equally. We should all be able to make fun of each other, that whole, saying bullshit. But then at the end of this same clip, he says that he understands that that's not correct, that if you are a marginalized person, like a woman or an ethnic minority, or, saying a religious minority or something like that, different considerations need to be taken, even when mocking them or putting them down.
But the point is, who knew? Who knew this shit was going to be made out of? The point is, damn it, 500 years ago we fucked with some people, and the rest of us should pay every penny that we have for the rest of our lives to make up for it. Race relations. I don't care whether you're
and
black,
in this
brown,
case,
purple, green,
he's acknowledging that, that you should not use nigger to insult any black person if you're just trying to insult them. Like, you need to find something else, because it is just too charged. It has too much weight. It is way too damaging all around to just say, oh, well, if we can make fun of, whites, then I should be able to make fun of everybody equally. And it's like, and it's more or less him acknowledging that that's actually not right, and why, now he doesn't say in that nowhere, and does he say that he's sorry for that incident, or that he even apologized to the guy? Or if he did, I didn't catch that in the audio. I'll have to go back and listen to it. But, and look, once again, that was some racist shit. And, like I said, I only discovered the dude in the last year, so I don't really know, how many other incidents there were, or how he's treated other black people, but the impression that I get so far from his views, everywhere, his views on other things, on other issues that concern, cultural, identity politics and social justice and whatnot, don't lead me to believe that he is a racist, but that he is, simply ignorant and has a different set of conditioning that doesn't make him as viscerally aware, of how fucked up some of his behavior is. Now here's the caveat. Now here's the turn. Is that throughout all this, I'm being very generous, right? Some of you are probably like, you're just being way overly apologetic for this white man, right? So then comes the apology. And in the apology, he more or less just kind of, it's that mealy mouth apology where he says like, okay, I understand that people were offended and that it was, it was tasteless. And then he goes on, but it's a 30-year joke. And, it was fine when Evel Knievel or somebody said it, but I use different words and, blah, 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 blah. So it's like, so it's like a slap in the face. And it's like, look, he doesn't have to apologize in a way that he doesn't want to. Do whatever he wants. But here's my thing, is that I've said things that are inappropriate. Whenever I've said some shit that somebody came up and corrected me on or said, hey, can you be better about that? It's like, look, it's like acknowledging that, hey, I realize why this was hurtful to you. And, I'm sorry that happened. And accepting that person's experience and what they're feeling and whatnot. And then you can still say that, like, I understand that I caused you, discomfort or, unease and whatnot. And the thing is, you could still in the end say, you know what, but I will, and then the thing is, if you want to continue down that path of doing that same shit, I mean, that is your freedom too. And there's always going to be plenty of audiences for that. And as I've said before, is that I'm not somebody who gets, like, I look at all this stuff, contextual, like just hearing the word nigger, without further context of who's saying it, what the situation is, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's the scenario and whatnot, who's involved. You know what I'm saying? Like, I try to look at it, that way, judging, even though most of the situations will be negative and what you expect them to be, it's you never really know. And so the thing is, even if the thing is, there's even a better way for him to have been defiant. You know what I'm saying? Like saying like, oh, it's a 30-year-old joke and Evel Knievel said it first and shit. To me, that's just a lame as fuck way of being defiant. Like, defiance has its own value. You know what I'm saying? But, and saying that the thing is, even if you're giving a half-assed apology, the half-assed part that needs to actually matter, if you're not going to, alter your behavior based on the criticisms, then you need to at least acknowledge why people are bothered by the shit, and that it's not a matter of, quote unquote, right or wrong or what you meant to do, but understanding that this is the possible impact. And, at the end of the day, it's like, come on, dude, you've been in this business for how long? You've been doing this thing for how long? How many jokes have you made? It's like, we are creative creatures. We can stretch ourselves and become different, and we don't have to continue to use the same language or the same ways of behaving and whatnot. He could have said, I understand that I cause people grief, and that, that I pride myself on being edgy and pushing the boundaries, but I realize I understand that this is, a step too far, and will be mindful of that in the future, while still trying to retain my sense of, pushing the line, or, pushing the line and whatnot, of what is considered, of pushing the boundaries of what is considered acceptable, which I think that is also just as valuable in society and in individuals as concerns with concerns of social justice and identity politics. It's not an either or thing. It's about, taking in a balance, a mixture of all of these different facets of the human experience, and, growing and developing as individuals and as a society, you know what I'm saying, around these efforts. So, so my verdict is, I don't get the, this was the worst kind of way to be defiant. There's a better way to show defiance, you know what I'm saying, in the face of controversy, in the face of criticism. And this was just, not the worst way you could have done it, but it was not good. And, I think that he should, I think that it would be in his best interest, and it would be showing the best side of himself, and as well as, keeping further opportunities, because he walked away from the company, from the contract that he had. And I'm like, dude, like, you didn't have to do that. All you got to do was just own up to your bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Say that you're still going to try to be the same person, but that you're going to alter your behavior so that way you can, find jokes and humor that allows even the targets of the joke to be able to laugh at themselves and not feel as if they're just being laughed at, but, he decided to just throw it all out in one fell swoop. So, so it sucks, but I hope that this is a lesson to people, because the thing is, like, with the internet and social media and whatnot, and even if you didn't put anything out on the internet that can be spun as offensive or problematic, people's testimony about how you behave and what you said to them, how you treated them, and their general takes on you. It's not a matter of if they are right or they're wrong or what their state of mind is. It's that this, it matters. It matters. Reputation matters. What people think of you and say about you, it matters. It just does. Right. And really the only way to erase the possibility of having somebody saying something you don't want to hear is for that person to just never know who the fuck you are. But for the rest of us, if you are actually engaged in society and engaged in life or whatever, then you live in a glass house, and just understand the internet, just given enough time and enough attention and enough focus, can come after any of us. And we just all have to be willing to deal with that when it comes, So there's that.